Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. So I'm by myself today, but for a very, very, very good reason. Brenda is just about to be a grandmommy again. So we just got word that her water broke and she's been in labor all night long. So she was already a little tired, but when she got word that it's about to happen, I decided to come on by myself. So the good news is Brenda actually put something out earlier this week. So for those of you that don't know, welcome to the drive. I'm Kat Hoyer, and my partner in crime and my now mountain climbing partner, Brenda Colter, is usually here with us, but today she is at the hospital for a very good reason. So we're welcoming a new life into the family. But she did post something earlier this week, and I'll share it in the drive so that you can see what her lessons were. We really needed to, we spent quite a bit of time together while we were in Denver and all of Colorado, really, but we spent some time apart and just downloading all of this, and it took me a little bit really to get the lesson and to I knew some things were coming, but it was a very, very different experience for me for several different reasons. But I'm gonna one of the things that I do know was my favorite takeaway from what she learned was whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. I thought that was so interesting and true in terms of when I look back on her journey. And I certainly can't speak to her journey, but I can tell you what I experienced just from kind of being a part of it I have my son's phone because I have my notes on here, and he's getting like Game Boy, I think that's what it is, like notifications and stuff. But anyway, but I know like we had to walk about a mile uphill before we even got to the base of the mountain. And we'll post some details on what the Manitou Incline is. But I had shared with both of them walking that mile uphill was the time that I did it this summer with my son. At that point I was like, oh gosh, I don't even know if I'm ready for this. But I'm glad that I did it. I'm glad that I experienced that feeling. Sorry, he's getting notifications and I keep thinking they're for me. They're not. I'm easily distracted. So I think that's somebody's name, Game Boy. I don't know. But anyway, it's something shiny in my hand. And I decided not to drive. I'm just sitting in my car because I want to be reading from this and I don't want to be distracted while I'm driving. But anyway, we had to walk a mile uphill, literally. By the time you get up there, you're pretty gassed. You're already in high elevation and coming from a place where, the elevation is not high, and then going there. We had a couple days to acclimate, which is helpful, but you're still, it's you have a little bit of a hard time breathing if you're not used to that climate. So we get there, we start up the hill, we're pretty excited. I say hill, it's a mountain. It is, it was the cable car or the rail train, and I explained it last week, but I think I explained it wrong. It's what's left of what the tracks were that used to carry pipes up to Pikes Peak. I think I'll get the actual information. I just know that it's the mountain that Pikes Peak, it's Pikes Peak Mountain. But anyway, at about the 200 step mark, Brenda was thinking about heading back. And it was really hard for me as a friend. I wanted to support her no matter what. And I didn't remember what I said in the moment, but she did. And I had said, that I support her in terms of, I did think that she could make it, but if she didn't want to, there was no shame in quitting. There was no shame in turning and going back, and that we would train and come back next year. And just so you know, we are planning on going back next year. And that's part of one of my notes in here. So anyway, I loved her takeaway of whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. But I'm going to go through, I had 6 things that I learned from it. Again, it was a very different experience for me this time because I did it this summer with my son. Trevor and I went out there. Well, we went out as a family, and Trev and I climbed it in July. So again, a very different experience. And I wish I would have done some type of a download back then, and it would probably been a little bit closer to what Brenda experienced this time. But you get to hear from her on what she experienced, and for me too. There's a 3/4 bailout place where for us we bailed out at that point. I know that I could have kept going. We just didn't have time. We needed to check out of the hotel that day. So anyway, so for me, the other thing that I tied in with this was that we had gone to a conference the day before. So Mariah Williams and Angela Garcia put on a conference called Moms Who Rise, and it was incredible. When I tell you incredible, I get choked up just thinking about it because it was so moving, and people were doing people were experiencing breakthroughs. For me, I'm a little further along in my journey because I'm teaching people these things, so it really helped me see things. And then this ties into both that experience with Moms Who Rise and then my experience with the mountain. And the first one was that we are all at different places on our journey. Be patient with those not yet where you are, and learn from those ahead of you. Oh, I probably should have warned you guys that I'm going to get emotional doing this. There's truly something to learn from each and every person, even if it's how far you've come. And I think for me, seeing people that were very early on in their journey, it was so powerful. It helped me see how far I've come. But it also helped me see how many people still need help and are still, just beginning this journey of self-awareness and really discovering how they can find a life of peace, passion, and productivity. And it sounds cliche when I say it like that, but it really is. Everybody's on in different places on their journey, and even going up and down the mountain, we would meet people at the very beginning. We would meet people, even some of them would come down the steps, which is highly discouraged. They encourage you to take the trail down. But people were at different places on their fitness journey. People were at different places on their physical journey up and down. And the thing on the mountain was that there was just so much patience. People were so encouraging. So that kind of leads me into the second one, which is there is no competition when you're on your path. There is room at the top for everyone. Wow. Disclaimer. I'm going to get super emotional on this one. There's room at the top for everyone. There was no one that was like, I'm going to push you out of the way to get there, because there was room for everyone. And it's that way in life too. That's not just, a silly cliche metaphor. When we start to understand the abundance of the world and life and how much, we don't need to compete with each other because we all are on our own unique journey. It's a pretty exciting thing to understand that. So number 2, there's no competition when you're on your path. There's room at the top for everyone. Number 3, the people you meet on your journey matter. The ones on their path and in their purpose will do nothing but encourage you. It's the ones not on their purpose that will judge. And I wanted to add a caveat. We all fall off the path sometimes, because I'm certainly not someone who's judgment free. But what the thing that I noticed about going up and down the mountain, we all had the same goal in mind, to get to the top. I heard people saying, I've got all day. Because we had to rest. There was a lot of resting that had to take place while we were doing this because, again, it's not just physical in terms of going up and down the mountain with your leg, stepping all these steps, but it was also the the air was thin, and it becomes a mind over matter thing at that point. But everybody was kind of on that's obviously everybody was on that same path, but so encouraging. And we saw a gentleman that is bringing awareness to diabetes, and he has already broken some records climbing, like in a certain period of time, a certain number in a certain period of time. But now he's looking to break how many times he goes up and down in a year. And my dad had read about him when we were out there this summer, and I was talking about him. I'm like, hey, there's this guy that's doing this. And we were probably about, I want to say maybe 1,500 steps or so when this happened. And I was telling the couple that Brenda speaks about in her live, that we were talking about him, and this guy goes by and he waves like this. I'm like, oh, you're him. I recognize it from the picture, so I did a quick selfie with him. I'll post that later. But it was pretty cool. He was someone on his journey, but we saw him coming back down, and then we saw him going back up again, and he was like, keep going, ladies. And it was just so cool to to experience people that were so encouraging. I can tell you too, for my first time there, I was resting a little bit, and I turned around, like I was sitting on one of the steps, and I turned around, and it's high up, and I'm afraid of heights. I climb a mountain, I'm afraid of heights, but I got a little dizzy, and she's like, are you sure you're okay? And I said, yeah, I am. She goes, listen, I'm a fitness trainer, and this thing's kicking my ass, so it's okay if you're not okay. And I'm like, no, but I actually am. Like, I'm going to be honest about it. But anyway, so just the people you meet on, number 3 was the people you meet on your journey matter. So pay attention to the ones that are encouraging you and the ones that are not. And it's no judgment to the ones that are not encouraging. It's just to kind of help us know who we need to surround ourselves with, and who we talked about. If you haven't seen the Healthy Boundaries episodes, go back to that, who you can create some healthy boundaries around, because maybe they aren't they're not quite on their path yet, or they've fallen off. I've done that too, where I've fallen off my path, and then I probably am not the best person to be around at that point. So I think just really understanding that the people that you surround yourself really matters. This is what was so different for me. When you've made it, it's time to give back and help. This is where I get really super duper emotional. When you've made it, it's time to give back and help others. It allows you to walk through the difficulties with greater ease. So it was such a different experience for me this time, because even though I'd only gone halfway, I had experienced what all of that was like. So it wasn't the first time for me. And again, going back to that conference, I've been through all of the stuff that a lot of those women were going through. So it was really impactful for me and humbling for me to see people that were at different parts of their journey. And the one thing I wanted to make sure was not to and this is just, again, the mountain and in life, not to hover over people who are trying to get to where they're going, but be within arm's reach. Like, if you need me, I'm right here, but I'm not going to hover over you because you're doing this on your own. And it was just a really, again, a very humbling experience to be able to, like it always is, to be able to give back in some way. So number 4 was, when you've made it, it's time to give back and help others. It allows you to walk through the difficulties with greater ease. It doesn't mean that it's not hard at all. It just means that you get strength by giving back to others. And I definitely noticed that I had strength when I was giving back to others. I had a lot more strength. And then number 5, this one was, take some time to enjoy the journey and your victory. So I didn't do that this time, and I'm going back next year. We'll probably plan it around this time next year. So anyone who's interested, we'll be posting details on that. But this was, I definitely enjoyed the journey up. I would turn around frequently and just take time to take the view in and just really, really enjoy that. But what I didn't do was take some time at the top. When I looked back, I'm like, oh, I really, next time, I'm not going to say I wish I would have done it differently, but what I do know that I'll do differently next time is that I will I'll spend a little more time just enjoying that victory before we head on to the next challenge, because when you listen to Brenda's, you'll know the next part was a huge challenge. Coming back down the mountain was almost as much of a challenge, or in some cases as much of a challenge as it was going up. So there's a couple funny moments in there, so I encourage you to listen to hers to talk about her trek down the mountain. And what was really interesting, we had Deanna with us, who was she was kind of doing the hardcore parkour thing, going down the hill, and Brenda's like mad at the world, and I'm like sandwiched in between, and it was another challenge. We'll just say that. And then the last is, when you've made it, you inadvertently give others encouragement and motivation to try. So the thing that was so cool about the fact that I did it this summer and then came back and had 2 more friends do it with me, was really cool. Like, I know that they thought, hey, if Kat could do this, I could do it, which was awesome and true, obviously. But what was really neat was when I got home. So this summer when I did it with Trev, my dad was really worried about it, because there have been a couple people who have died on this thing. Like, it's no joke, it's not just a walk in the park. It's pretty serious. So he was pretty worried. I found out how worried he was after I got back safe. But when I explained it to him this time and kind of talked about it, he wants to do it next year with us. So I'm super excited about that. But I think, again, that's the same thing in life. When you've made it in some way, and I think, anytime you've overcome something, you don't know who you're encouraging. And I think it's important to know that, people are watching us, not just through our struggles, but through the victories as well. And people that we may not even know and realize are getting encouragement from what we're going through. So, it's not just climbing a mountain. It's getting through a messy divorce. It's getting through a job loss. It's getting through starting a business. It's getting through trying to balance your work and your life. I mean, I know for me, having moms who don't try to be perfect moms are the best things ever, and the most fun that we have is sharing our failures with each other. And that's so encouraging to be like, wow, she's an awesome mom, and sometimes forgets to pick her kid up at school. That would just be me. They don't do that. But anyway, so the last one is, when you've made it, you inadvertently encourage others and motivate, or you inadvertently give others encouragement and motivation to try too. So this would have been a lot more fun with Brenda, but again, she's missing it for such a good reason. So if you guys have any questions, we'll post a little bit more with the pictures, a little bit more information on what the Manitou Incline is. And I'm probably going to go in and, I'm going to go get some coffee, and then I'm going to cry for a while, because this was one of the coolest experiences that I've ever had. And again, humbling, just very, very humbling, grateful for my body and what it can do, grateful for my mind and what it can do. And then just, incredibly grateful to be able to experience that part of the country. If you've never been out there, it's like nothing I've experienced. I mean, and I've been very fortunate to see a good portion of at least the U.S. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful area. And I'm going to do everything I can to get back there as often as I can. So that's it. Thank you guys so much. And it's so much more fun with Brenda. But thank you guys for coming. I'll talk to you later.